Hi, everyone, and welcome to our podcast, Special Needs on the Table, with your host, Alyssa Apostolopolous.
And me, Yomi Karade. Today, we are very excited for a special edition podcast on an upcoming group for mums who have a child with a disability with psychotherapist, clinical social worker, and owner of Work of Heart Counseling, Kara Kushnir. Welcome, Kara, to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
We're so excited to have you. You are doing incredible work. So we wanted to start off by having you tell us about yourself and your background.
Sure. So like you had said, I'm a psychotherapist and licensed clinical social worker in New Jersey. I work with kids, teenagers, moms, and families. I am a born and raised Jersey girl, and also have a sibling on the autism spectrum with also intellectual disabilities, and have also had a lot of just personal and professional experiences leading me into working with families as a whole. And that's really what sparked my interest in kind of doing more in this community, especially for parents and siblings as well. But in this focus, parents and moms of kids with special needs. So I'm excited to share a little bit about that with you guys today, and anything that I can share in regards to my background and the work that we do, if it can be of help to the families in our community.
Excellent. Thank you for that. So you're founder of A Work of Heart. Can you describe a bit about it and why you created it?
Sure. A Work of Heart Counseling is we're a pretty small, like a boutique sized private practice in Bergen County. We serve everywhere from children ages 6 all the way up until adulthood. We have some therapists who specialize in perinatal mental health and for pregnancy and postpartum, trauma. We work with kids with all different needs, including disabilities and psychiatric needs. And I founded it because I wanted to have a place for families that really met the needs along that continuum and wasn't just tailored towards one individual group of people, but was really more so for the whole family system. And so that's why one of our taglines is from childhood to parenthood and beyond, so that people understand we're here for that whole family journey. But I founded it because I also remember working in clinical practice with children and families, especially in the disability community, saying to a supervisor at one point, this is so hard. Like I'm having such a tough day. I'm really feeling for this kid, and this is exhausting. And I really felt emotionally connected to this kid and had a tough time. And my supervisor said, it's hard work because it's hard work. It matters. And that's what stuck to me and made me want to create an environment where that was the focus, that when people come through the door, it didn't feel so clinical and white coat and stuffy, but there was that real human connection, and that people felt a sense of safety and I think just a sense of being seen and heard for exactly who they are when they walk in. So that's really what we try to embody.
That's incredible. So you were telling us that you have both a sibling and you've had work experience. So that sounds like really what sparked your interest in starting this. So tell us a little bit more about, your sibling and how you really became passionate about working with people who have disabilities.
Sure. So my sister Katie is 5 years younger than I am, and she was diagnosed with autism when she was 3. And I remember at that age kind of not really knowing much about it, and but just knowing that she was having a tough time. When she was growing up, she was nonverbal for a big portion of her childhood, had a lot of really maladaptive behaviors, really struggled with aggression. And I would say it was a little traumatic at times, just kind of not knowing how she was going to be and what it was going to be like for her and for the family. And I really watched my mom struggle navigating with that. I also really could sense that our family was kind of isolated, that we didn't really connect to other families. There was this sort of underlying sense of almost shame, like, well, we're kind of othered, and so how do we participate with this, and how do we connect? And so growing up with that and becoming aware of it, really I felt a kinship towards both children with disabilities and watching the growth that's possible for them, and even adults especially, who I think are oftentimes not even a part of it, and the transition to adulthood can be really challenging, but also on the family side, and having a lot of empathy for my parents and even for myself. And I have a twin sister who's also works for me, so she in this practice, so she and I both together talk at length about this. And so I think that really sparked an interest in wanting to support families, I think, that oftentimes don't get the recognition or don't get the support they need because they put themselves in the back burner, or life is so crazy that they end up putting themselves inadvertently in the back burner. And there's so many unmet needs. And I really wanted to address that. I think it's important that they're acknowledged.
That's
Wow.
wonderful. That really is great. And I know that you talked about your sister who has autism, so you've got quite a heavy background in autism. What other disabilities have you worked with under, your own company?
Sure. Yeah, so we've worked with kids with a variety of need. I would say autism is one of the biggest. We've also worked with kids who have other intellectual disabilities, as well as young adults with intellectual disability of all different kinds, individuals with Down syndrome. I've had a few individuals with some communication disorders, like some pragmatic communication, as well as genetic conditions and abnormalities. We have an individual right now who has cerebral palsy. One of the things I actually made sure to do when we got our space was find a space that was accessible. So our offices are completely accessible. If somebody is utilizing a wheelchair or has some sort of mobility need, we are able to accommodate that, and they are able to come in. If they would like in-person services, we also offer teletherapy to people where it's more easy and accessible for both the family and or the individual to access support. And that was part of, I think, that unfolded a lot during COVID, but in looking for this space, I really wanted a space that people could come to, because we've had individuals where that's a need. And then also just working with families, specifically, I think parents and siblings of kids and adults with those needs, but even really early on, like moms with babies when they're in the NICU and they're finding out there's some sort of genetic abnormality or some sort of disability, and guiding them through that process of understanding that too. So it's kind of working with the disability, but also working with the family system around disability, I think, is what we've had a lot of work in.
That's amazing. Fully encompassing, it sounds like. I love
Yep.
that. And even on your website, I love how you guys have the different specialties that your group serves. So can you tell us more about these specialties and how they can help even the special needs community in particular?
Yeah, sure. So it's interesting. I think our niches, all these different areas we try to meet, really relate to the fact that when you work with somebody with a disability, there's intersectionality. Anybody can have a disability. So, no matter what background you come from, race, religion. So, and that includes mental health, right? So there's that dual diagnosis component, and there's a lot of, I think, mental health conditions or just, mental wellness needs that go right along with that. So, to that end, I would say one of the areas we have a lot of interest in treating is anxiety and OCD. We see that a lot with individuals on the spectrum. There's a great co-occurrence of that, as well as mood disorders, especially with adolescents. We'll see there's an increase in risk for anxiety and depression. So we'll see that a lot. We also do a lot of work, like I said, in maternal mental health, and that relates to that family holistic piece of helping moms really navigate through the adjustment and transition to parenthood, especially if you add in that new experience of my baby was born with Down syndrome, or my baby was born with a genetic condition, or I knew that was going to happen in my pregnancy and I didn't, how do I process that, and how do I best prepare? So a lot of the areas that we've kind of, I think, developed as specialties and grown into relate to the fact that all of these families go through things that all families go through and can need support with, but there's some unique, I think, experiences and overlap with the disability community that we've sort of found in our own interest and work that really fit nicely and support that. So I think that's kind of how it's just naturally unfolded. And I've also sought out clinicians that can meet individuals in all different special areas because of that, wanting to be this sort of central place that people can come to. And if we don't have, an area that fits, something we pride ourselves into is having great connections in the community, so that if we're not the right fit, we're going to connect you to the right person. Even in sort of, I think, developing our process of getting referrals, we have a policy that if you call us, we're calling you back. It drives me absolutely crazy when someone calls me and says, "Oh, thank you so much for calling us back. We've called 5 people and nobody called us back." It happens all the time. All the time people experience that. And I understand people are busy and life happens. And so there can be reasons for it, but it's when you're really finally reaching out for help and make that call. So that's important to us too, that while we have all of these areas that are specializations and we feel they're helpful, if maybe it's not the right fit, or we're just not the right fit for you, we're going to try to give you linkage to other people who are,
Yeah, you totally take on the responsibility of it in the right way, though. You know,
Yeah.
anybody
Yeah.
needs that call back, especially
Mhm.
when they're reaching out and they're saying, I need help. Even to hear that I might not be the right fit, but somebody else might be,
Yeah.
is just what they might need.
Yeah, because it takes courage. It's scary to reach out, especially if whether it's for your child or if it's for yourself. It's really hard to say, you know, I don't. And you know what? Honestly, I don't. I think for myself, I have a son, and I'm a newer mom, but I'll say all the time, you know, there's times where I'm like, I don't really know if I know what I'm doing. And so, and it's scary to admit that and to say, you know, I think I need help. It's a really hard thing for people to do. So it's
Mhm.
really critical to be able to say, hey, good for you. No, we're here for you, even if we're not right for you. You know, hey, I think you could really use this sort of specialization. I want to get you access to that person. Here's like 3 people that you should call. Let me give you their phone number. I mean, that just, it gives them a light at the end of the tunnel that they need, that you took that hard step of reaching out. I'm not going to let that ball drop from you right then and there. Then what are we doing as a system? So it's kind of it's a small thing, but I think it matters for people.
Most definitely. Most definitely. And also it's like, it seems that you have staff on board that you know that you can rely on. So what kind of training do they need to have to actually come to work with you?
Sure. So all of the therapists who work for me have had some experience other than private practice that has allowed them to work with the populations they work with. Now, not all of our therapists will work with the special needs community because it's not their area and wheelhouse. And so those clinicians do not get matched to those referrals. The individuals who do have specialized training, either working in school systems and working in outpatient settings where they have already worked with this community and population. They also have had specialized training in crisis de-escalation, children's mental health, and disability, and how that intersects in their graduate level training, because everybody has at least a master's degree and a clinical license to practice, but otherwise has had some sort of formal professional experience, whether it's working in public school systems. I would say more than half of our clinicians, including myself, have been on child study teams. We know what it's like to be on the other side of the table. We know what it's like to be the parent at the meeting at the child study team. So we have that school component. We also have individuals who work in private school settings or have worked in-home settings with children with disabilities who are very intensely in need and aren't appropriate yet to come to an office setting. So we've had that for them. I've done that as well in the past. And I think having that experience of understanding the levels of care is really important. So we look for that in our staff, that they have an understanding of the scope of what's available and how to match those needs with what's appropriate. And then on the other side, we have clinicians who work with younger adults and adults that have that experience of having worked, whether it was in residential placements, day hab community residential settings, as well as working in transition and working with families on the process of going from school to adult life. So they understand what they're encountering, so that if they're processing those experiences, or they're talking about DDD, they're talking about, you know, children's system of care. It's alphabet soup, as I'm sure you know. And I tell that to all the families, all these systems, that's how I refer to it. We are experienced enough with those systems that not only are we able to provide the psychosocial support they need in a therapeutic setting, but also able to give them some of that guidance and a little bit of that insight into the case management piece. Having that background in social work, it's a little bit holistic, to be able to guide them through that and understand what they're talking about. I think that's important, because I think a lot of times this community and population is not as much discussed or understood at large by the mental health community, and they kind of get pushed to the side. So understanding that from having been involved in that is really important to me. So I make sure that our team has experiences with those systems in different capacities, and that those clients are matched to those needs and through those experiences, so that person's going to feel understood. I think that's important.
Absolutely. And with being matched with somebody, if the person has a disability, or someone, a part of their family is coming to you and a work of heart, who would they be expected to pair with then?
So typically it would be myself or Kristen. We have the most experience with working with this. And then we also have 2 other clinicians who work with children and teens. One of them is newer to us, and she's fantastic. She has over 20 years of experience working in elementary education, and now is working in counseling. And so she's worked with very little kids. So it depends on those areas. Myself will often take on individuals where there's a dual diagnosis of some sort of anxiety component, or working with moms and siblings. What we also, I think when it comes to the ASD piece, Kristen and I are 2 of the point people in that area, not only because of our personal experience, but we have the most professional experience in working with it in the team. So we're kind of the 2 people people that typically receive those referrals the most. And then our other clinician, Chris Ann, will also see individuals, especially our younger little kids. She's really a strong suit in that. And then we have 2 other clinicians who see adolescents, but one of them, Angela, works in a therapeutic school as well. So she has a lot of experience working with individuals with ADHD, individuals who have, I would say, more psychiatric disability than developmental disability. And she's been a huge asset as well from that perspective of teens, I think, to connect on that level. Because I think when you work with adolescents, it's a different experience. So being able to connect with them is really important.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Now, we're just going to change tunes a little bit, turn to a different channel, because we know that you have this up and coming group of mums who have special needs. Can you tell us more about it? Because I'm excited to know more about it as well. And what kind of people can expect to join? And just tell us about it, please.
Sure. So it's a support group and a workshop, which people are like, what does that mean? So basically it's a dual format. So I wanted a space where moms could connect with each other, but I also wanted them to leave and take something with them, not just have it be sort of event session, because I think that can happen very easily in a group. So we wanted it to be a bit more structured. So while it's a support group format for open dialogue, there's also going to be a component of working on self-care. And that's why I called it What About Mom? Because I think, again, moms get pushed to the back burner. So I wanted this to be a place to unpack not only, okay, how do I connect and become less isolated and realize I'm not the only mom who, is struggling and has a child with a disability, but also what do I do when I'm feeling overwhelmed? And what do I do that's not, just like go get a manicure and just like go do this? Because moms with kids with disabilities can't do some of the things that other parents can do. It's not accessible to them. So we wanted it to feel accessible. We wanted it to be a space for them where they could learn, okay, this is something practical, free or very low cost, something I can add into my routine very easily, doesn't feel as stressful. So it's going to be a little bit of a practical workup as well as a discussion. It's open to any mom of a child ages 3 to 21. We're really focusing on that like school age into transitional age, because those are really tough times. And I think also from like that early, when kids are transitioning from early intervention into preschool, as well as all the way up into high school, there's an opportunity for moms of older kids to give back to moms of younger kids, and moms of younger kids to also in some ways give back and be a different perspective and maybe have a little bit of a fresh set of eyes for moms of kids who are older. So it's a nice potential relationship there. And I found that's really helpful to have that variety for them. But it's also open to any parent who really wants to attend, because it's not a therapeutic group and it's just a supportive group and workshop. I can see anybody across state lines. So anybody can come to this who wants to in the entire country. I think a lot of the resources will be focused on the tri-state area because of where we are. But I also wanted something that was accessible, because I think that I didn't want it to be limited any further. There's so many limitations to accessing support as is, excuse me, that I wanted something that felt accessible from the go. And that's why it's virtual as well, so that your kids can be going to sleep in the other room at 8 o'clock at night. We made it a little bit later. People are hopefully home from work. People are, maybe their kids are settling down for the night. It might make it a little bit easier for people to participate, hop on a Zoom and be there for it, and not have to worry about childcare, not have to worry about work, and be able to participate.
This is going to be incredible. I'm so excited for this. I feel like so many moms are going to benefit from being able to share with each other, to be able to learn those resources, and to be able to have even like coping mechanisms that go into the daily routine. Like you said, getting a manicure is a one-time fix, and they might not even be able to easily do that. So this is something where then they're going to build a community too. I love that.
Exactly.
Are there any other resources that you would even recommend for families who have a child with special needs?
So, I mean, obviously you guys are a really great resource to moms of kids with special needs. So I think that's for sure. So if they found you, that's wonderful. If they're able to watch this, to see what else you guys are offering and just see that you are a resource. I think that people fail to realize that planning ahead is so important, or they are afraid to. So I encourage people to utilize you too. But I also would say, in addition to that, if you're starting out or younger and you're not there, I think just educating yourself on what's available to you, like to, read about the children's system of care and DD eligibility, talk to your school district, ask for information, talk to other parents, go online, go on these, Facebook support groups and talk to people, because, knowledge is power. And I think the more you can educate yourself, the better, but talking to other people in it is the best way. I would also say, I highly encourage everybody who is a parent or a sibling or involved in the community and wants to be a part of it as a family member to get involved in their local regional family support planning council. Every county in New Jersey has one. They are affiliated with the New Jersey Council on Developmental Disabilities. I'm actually a family member on the New Jersey Council on Developmental Disabilities, and I am the public policy chair. And I love that work because it lets me wear a different hat. And I think that that's important that parents get involved in that side of things, because then they can have access to, if they need advocacy, if they have questions, there's a whole set of resources and people who are really well versed in the system. So I always highly encourage and like to kind of plug those regional family support planning councils as another resource.
That's a great
beautiful. Yes. Thank you so much. That's beautiful. You know, you've been a wonderful guest, and thank you very much for sharing everything with us today. It's been absolutely lovely. And it's just so nice to have somebody who's a clinician who's actually being honest and can share some really good in-depth information of where families, because it's sometimes it can be almost daunting, first of all, especially the first few years when you have a child with special needs and you don't know where to go and you don't know who you can trust. That's another big thing, is trust is so huge, you know, so thank you so much for everything that you do. And we really appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah. I agree with that. Trust is so important. And so I would say to that too, for any parent who hears this, you know, go with your gut. It doesn't, just because I'm saying this to you doesn't mean I'm the right person for you or that my practice is. And that's not what I want this to all be about either. This is a conversation about what's out there for you. And I hope that this just, even if it's not me, it sparks a thought for you of you deserve support. Go find it, find your person, find the person you trust, and trust your gut that you're going to, you know, use the supports that are right for you and find that connection that's right for you. And that's the most important thing. And the best predictor of an outcome in therapy is the relationship you have with your therapist. So that is most important.
You are amazing. I feel just so grateful to be able to be talking to you now and to learn about what you do. And I really am excited for the moms that will be able to be a part of the group that you're going to be starting. We're going to make sure to have the link for you on this podcast, on the release for it. And we want to make sure that everybody, you check out her Instagram at aworkofheart_counseling, and on her Facebook, and make sure you can also email her to join the group as well.
Yes, please. Thank you so much. And also be sure to check out this podcast with Kara Kushnir, and also all our future podcasts. And please make sure you follow us on Instagram and YouTube at Special Needs on the Table. Thank you very much, Kara.
Thank you so much.
It's been great. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.